Hey guys, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. My name is Liz. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're making a cover-up dress. It's been a minute since I made a cover-up, a bikini cover-up. This is a very simple pattern and I'll be giving explanation on how to make different sizes. The stitches that you need to know in order to make this pattern are the single crochet stitch, the chain stitch, the double crochet stitch, and the quad stitch. I used 5 balls of medium weight acrylic yarn and each of the balls is 50 grams. I'll be using a 4mm crochet hook, medium weight yarn in this color which is burnt orange. This yarn is 100% acrylic and it's a 4-ply yarn. You can substitute this with any medium weight yarn of your choice, a pair of scissors, measuring tape, stitch markers and darning needle. The following are the required measurements. We have the shoulder to shoulder measurements and then we have the bust measurements. I'll take the bust measurement divided by 2 to get 18, then the hip measurement and the full length of the dress. We start with a slip knot and make a chain that is a multiple of 3 and it's equals to the shoulder to shoulder measurement. So right here I'm just going to chain until I get my shoulder to shoulder measurement when the chain is slightly stretched. I've done a total of 51 chains and I'm going to measure it to confirm whether it gets me to 16, which is my shoulder to shoulder measurement. So right here I'm just measuring while stretching just a little bit, and there it gets me to 16. So now I'm ready to start row 1. I'll hold the last chain to block it off and then chain 3 more, 1, 2 and 3. Then yarn over, insert the hook into that chain that I'm holding, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double crochet. Into the next chain we're going to do the same thing, a double crochet. Into the chain that follows we're going to place a double crochet. A double crochet into the chain that follows, and then we work all the way to the end of row 1. So each of the chains will get 1 double crochet, and at the end of row 1 we should have 52 double crochets. The chain 3 at the beginning counts as a double crochet, so we're going to have a total of 52 double crochets. So if you started with 51 chains, your number of stitches should increase by 1 to get you to 52. If you start with say 45 chains, the number of stitches that you end up with in row 1 will be 46. So any number that you started with plus 1. And remember, the number that you start with should be a multiple of 3. I'm coming to the end of row 1 and I'm placing my last double crochets. So right there I have the last double crochet. As you can see, row 1 is complete and this is what we have. And now we are ready to begin row 2. So we begin row 2 by chaining 3. So chain 1, 2 and 3 and turn, and that's our first double crochet. So we're going to skip the first stitch and work into the second one, where we're going to place a double crochet, a double crochet into the stitch that follows, a double crochet into the next stitch, into the next stitch, and we're just going to place 1 double crochet into all the stitches to the end of row 2. At the end of row 2, I'm working my double crochet in the second last stitch, and the last stitch will be on top of the chain 3 from the beginning of row 1. So remember not to forget that stitch, because if you do, you'll have less 1 stitch. So chain 3, 4, 5 and turn, Then we're going to chain 2 more, so that in total we've chained 7 to begin row 3. Yarn over 3 times. Insert the hook into that first stitch and pull up a loop. Then yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through another 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2, and that's called a quad stitch, and we've done an increase at the beginning right there. So chain 2, yarn over 3 times, so you're going around your hook 3 times, and then you're going to skip 2 stitches, work into the third, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's our second quad stitch. Chain 2 again and go around the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, yarn over, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. Then we're going to chain 2 again, yarn over 3 times and skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place a quad stitch right there, and we're going to work this pattern to the end of row 3. So chain 2, again go around the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place a quad stitch. Keep going to the end of the row. We chain in 2 at the end and then yarn in over 3 times, and the last stitch will be on top of the chain 3 from the beginning of row 2. So insert the hook right there, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to work an increase there, so we chain 2 and go around the hook 3 times, then go back into that very last stitch and place our last quad stitch right there. Now we're done with row 3, and the increase was to get us to the bust measurements, which is 18. Chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. We're going to begin into the chain 2 space, and right there we're going to place 2 double crochets. So we have 1 and 2. We work in the quad stitch, we place a double crochet into it. In the chain 2 space we place 2 double crochets. One double crochet on the quad stitch, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet on the quad stitch, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet on the quad stitch, then 2 double crochets, and repeat this pattern to the end. We get to the last quad stitch and place a double crochet there. Then we have the chain 7. We place 2 double crochets into the chain, and then we're going to count 5 chains from the bottom of the chain and insert our hook into the 5th chain. Then do the last double crochet into that 5th chain. That will be the end of row 4, and this is what we have. Then we're going to chain 3, so that is 1, 2, and 3, and turn to begin row 5, and we're going to begin row 5 in the second stitch. Place a double crochet into that stitch, place a double crochet into the third stitch, the next stitch that is, which is a third, place a double crochet into the stitch that follows, and we're going to work 1 double crochet across. At the end, make sure that you have your double crochet into the chain 3, And that's the end of row 5. This is what we have. Get the measuring tape and measure to see whether we've gotten to our bust measurements. So I need to get to a bust of 18 inches when this is stretched, and when I do give this a bit of a stretch, it gets me to 18 inches. It can actually stretch out to more than 18, and therefore I do not need to increase anymore. Now if your bust measurement is bigger than 18 when divided by 2, then you're going to increase in the next row, which is row 6. But because I've gotten to my desired bust measurement, I'll stop increasing and just keep working without the increase. Chain 5 and turn. The chain 5 is our first quad stitch, then chain 2, go around the hook 3 times, insert your hook into the first stitch and complete the quad stitch. So you're going to do this if you want to do an increase, and then you're going to chain 2, go around the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches and work a quad stitch into the third stitch, and then repeat the pattern to the end. And then when we get to the last stitch, we're going to do another increase at that very end. Now that is only if you've not gotten to your bust measurement. If you've already gotten to your bust measurement, you do not need to do this. So because I've already gotten to my bust measurement, this was just an illustration. I'll go back to the beginning and start over the row without the increase. So after the 7 chains, we're going to yarn over 3 times. Then we're going to skip 2 stitches and work into the 4th stitch. Actually, we are skipping 3 stitches because we're skipping the one which has a chain, and then we are skipping the 2nd and the 3rd and working into the 4th. Chain 2, go around the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches and work a quad stitch into the next stitch. And we're going to repeat this row up to the end, chaining 2, skipping 2 and working a quad stitch. So keep going to the end and I'll meet you there. I'm working my second last quad stitch, and then I'm going to chain 2 and work the very last quad stitch in the chain 3 from the previous row. This is what we have so far, and I'm loving how it's turning out. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn to begin row 7. Work 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 and 2, a double crochet onto the quad stitch, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 and 2, 1 double crochet on the quad stitch, 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet onto the quad stitch and repeat to the end. I'm coming to the end and I'm placing 2 double crochets in the chain 7 space at the end, then the last double crochet into the chain 5 on that chain 7. So that's our last double crochet, chain 3 and turn to begin row 8, work in the second stitch, place a double crochet, then place 1 double crochet into all the stitches across. I'm in the second last stitch. At the end, we place the last double crochet onto the chain 3. Now this is what we have after the 8 rows, and I'm going to get my measuring tape and measure to see the length of my dress so far. I'm at around 5.5 inches and I want to go up to 10 or maybe 11. An adult armhole is usually 9 inches, but I'm going to work something longer. I can go to up to between 10 and 12. So I'll keep working my rows and then I'll let you know the length that I'll have gone with. It could be 10, it could be 11, it could be 12. I haven't figured that out, but let me keep going, repeating the rows, alternating between the quad stitch row and the double crochet rows. So I'm going to start with the chain 7 or the chain 5 plus 2 chains, which makes 7, and then turning. When I turn, you know what we do. If you've already gotten to your bust measurement, you're going to go around the hook 4 times, skip 3 stitches and work into the 4th. When I talk about skipping 3 stitches, I mean skipping, you're also skipping the first one. So you're counting from the first one and skipping. Then chain 2, yarn over 3 times, do a quad stitch after skipping 2 stitches. Then chain 2 again, yarn over twice, thrice, that is yarn over thrice, then skip 2 stitches and work a quad stitch. Then repeat the row to the end. Row 9 will be the same as row 6. Row 10 will be the same as row 7. Row 11 will be the same as row 8. I've done a total of 15 rows so far, and I'm going to measure to see the length I'm at. So this gets me to 11 inches, and that's what I'm going to work with. At the end of row 15, we're going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn. So make a chain, get the pair of scissors, cut off the yarn, pull it through and fasten, and we are done with the top part of the back panel of the dress. So now turn it to the top, and we're going to work from the top on both sides so that we can work the front panel. We get the yarn and the hook and start with a slip stitch in between the first 2 double crochets. Insert the yarn there and pull up a loop. That's the slip stitch. Then chain 1, back into that stitch in between the 2 stitches and place a single crochet. And as we work the single crochets, we're going to work over those 2 ends that are right there, those ones. Then go in between the next 2 double crochets and place a single crochet. Then a third single crochet in between the next 2 double crochets, and we're going to work a total of 16 single crochets in between the double crochet stitches. So that's 4. We're going to have 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, we have 13, 14, 15, and 16. Work 13 stitches if your stitches are less than 51. Then chain 3 and turn to begin the double crochet row, which will be our first row for the front panel. The single crochet row is just a joining row. So we're going to start in the second stitch, place a double crochet, and then place 1 double crochet into all the stitches for a total of 16 double crochets. Or 13 double crochets if you started with 13 single crochets. If your starting chain was 51, you're going to work 16 single crochets at the beginning. If they were less than 51, you're going to work 13 single crochets. If they are more than 51, you can work up to 19 single crochets. You want a multiple of 3 plus 1. So that is why I have 16, which is 15 plus 1. Then I have 13, which is 12 plus 1. Then I can have 19, which is 18 plus 1. So at the end, I have my last double crochet. Then I'll chain 3 again and turn to begin the second row of the front panel. Start in the second stitch and place a double crochet. Then place a double crochet into all the stitches. At the end, we should have 16 double crochets, that is including the chain 3, which is our first double crochet. So keep going to the end of that row. At the end of the row, we have the second last double crochet, then the last double crochet onto the chain 3, and that is the end of my row 2 of the front panel. And when we fold this in, this is how it looks like. So this is what we should have, like that. So now we are in the third row, which was an increase row. So now I'll need to increase on that side. Start with a chain 5 plus 2, which is a total of 7 chains, and then turn, and then yarn over 3 times, 1, 2, and 3. Skip the first 3 stitches and work into the fourth. Work the quad stitch, so that is yarn over, pull through 2 4 times, chain 2, yarn over 3 times, then skip 2 stitches, work the quad stitch in the next stitch. When you complete the quad stitch, chain 2, yarn over 3 times, 1, 2, and 3, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place your quad stitch there, chain 2, yarn over 3 times, skip 2 stitches and work into the next one, place the quad stitch, chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches, work the last stitch on the chain 3 at the beginning of the previous row. And because we have an increase on that side in the previous panel, we're going to chain 2 and work our increase in that very last stitch. So place the last quad stitch right there. And now we are done with row 3. Chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. Begin row 4 into the chain 2 space. Work 2 double crochets in that space. So that is 1 and 2. Then 1 double crochet on top of the quad stitch and repeat the pattern to the end. At the end, we're going to place the double crochet in the last quad stitch. Then we're going to work in the chain 7. We place 2 double crochets. And finally, we have our last double crochet on the chain 5. So count 5 chains and place a double crochet right there. Then we're going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn at that point. Then pull the yarn through and fasten. And this is what we have now. We want to replicate this on the other side of the top part of our dress. We turn to that other side and count 16 gaps in between double crochets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Insert the hook into that 16th gap and grab a loop of the yarn and pull it through to slip stitch. Then we chain 1 and back into that gap with a single crochet. Then a single crochet into the next gap. Make sure that you're working over the short end. Then I'm going to place single crochets into the gaps in between the double crochets for a total of 16 single crochets. This is my last single crochet, and I'm going to chain 3 and turn Then I'll work a double crochet row with 16 single crochets, just like I did on the other side. So I'll work this row and another row, 2 rows of double crochets, and then I'll come back once I have the 2 rows. You already know how to do the double crochet rows. At the end of the row, you chain 3 and turn, then you work a double crochet into all the stitches. I'm coming to the end of the second double crochet row, and right here, this is what we have. So I'm ready to work row 3, and as you can see, row 3 starts with an increase. So I'm going to increase on this side. I'll start by chaining 7, which is chain 5 is our quad stitch plus 2 chains. So chain the 7 and turn. Then we begin in that very first stitch because we're working an increase. Yarn over the hook 3 times. Then go into the first stitch and do a quad stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, yarn over 3 times on the hook, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place a quad stitch, chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place the quad stitch and continue to the end. At the end, we chain 2 and place our last quad stitch in the chain 3 from the previous row. I'm done with row 3, so I'll chain 3 and turn to begin row 4. Row 4 is a double crochet row where we work 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, then 1 double crochet on the quad stitch, 2 double crochets on the chain 2 space, 1 double crochet into the quad stitch, and repeat to the end. So let me go to the end of row 4 and then I'll show you how to do row 5. I'm at the end of the row and I'm counting the 5 chains in order to place the last double crochet on top of the 5th chain. So right there I have my last double crochet and I'm done with row 4. Now at this point I'll not cut off the yarn like I did on the other side. I'll just continue to row 5. And to work row 5 we need to do a chain that will connect the 2 sides of the front panel into one. Chain 3 to begin row 5 for 1, 2 and 3 and turn, and when we turn we're going to work a double crochet into the next stitch. Then we're going to work a total of 16 double crochets in total in that row. So let me get to the end of this row on this side. When we get to the end, we're going to make a chain that is equals to the number of stitches that are between the 2 front panels that you've just done. So I'm going to chain 20 because those are the stitches that are remaining in between the 2 panels. So I'll chain the 20, and then after the 20 chains, I'm going to connect my work to the other side. So these stitches on the top part right here are what I'm talking about. So you need to count those stitches and then chain the same number. And then we're going to yarn over, go onto the other side and do a double crochet. So do the double crochet right there and then double crochet into the next stitch and then do a double crochet to the end. And that will be the end of row 5. And we'll have joined the 2 front panels together to form one whole front panel. At the end, our last stitch will be in the chain 3 stitch from the previous row, and we have connected that, and this is what we have. We are ready to do row 6, which is the same as the row 6 in the back panel. So from row 6 up to row 15, we're just going to work the same thing that we did in the back panel. So we begin with the chain 7, which is a quad plus two extra chains. So we have 5 plus 2. Then we're going to yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 1, skip the second, skip the third, and work into the fourth, double crochet and work the quad stitch right there. Then chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times. I've done 2 times. So I'll just undo, let me undo, and then yarn over 3 times, then skip 2 stitches and work the quad stitch. I'm going to repeat this until I get to my chain stitches. So keep going with the quad stitch and the chains in between until you get to where the chains that are connecting the 2 pieces are. This is my last quad stitch before the chains. So once I get to the chains, I'll chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, and then count my stitches 1, 2, and work into the third. So we're just going to do what we've been doing on the normal stitches. We're going to do a quad stitch right there in the third chain from the quad stitch that we've done previously. So do the quad stitch right there. Then we're going to chain 2 again, chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, 1, 2, and 3, count 2 chains and work into the third, place a quad stitch, chain 2, yarn over twice, count 2 stitches and skip them, then work the quad stitch into the third, chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 chains, work into the third chain, place the quad stitch, then again chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 chains, work into the third, place a quad stitch, then again we're going to chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 chains and quad stitch. At this point you should get to a point where you have 2 chains remaining before you get to the other side of the front panel. So you chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip the 2 that are remaining and work into the previous double crochet on the other side. So now this is what we have. Then I'm going to continue with the quad stitch and the 2 chains till I get to the end of row 6. I'm at the end of row 6 and I'm doing my last quad stitch into the chain 3, and this is what we have. So now I'll repeat the 2 double crochet rows, then the quad stitch, the 2 double crochet rows until I get to 15 rows. I'll come back once I have my 15 rows in the front panel. This is after my 15 rows for the front panel, and this is what we have. And now I'm ready to begin working the skirt part of the dress. And to do that, we need to join the front panel and the back panel together at the points where we've ended the 15 rows. So now I'll work the double crochet row, which will be our 16th row, to the end, and when to the end of one panel. Then when I get there, I'll join to the other side. So chain 3 and turn and work the 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space. So that is 1 and 2. Then I'll work the double crochet on the quad stitch, continue to the end, and I'll meet you at the end so that I can show you how to connect to the other panel. I'm at the end of row 16 on this panel. So once I'm done, I'll just turn my work like this and bring the back part closer. Then I'm going to yarn over, get that back panel on the chain 7. I'm going to yarn over and count 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Insert my hook into the 5th chain right there, then do a double crochet. So there I'll do a double crochet, then into the chain 2, the 2 chains that are remaining there, I'll do 2 double crochets right there, 2 double crochets. So as you can see, we've connected the 2 panels on one side, then 1 double crochet on top of the quad stitch, and then I'll continue to the corner. Then I'll meet you at the corner so that I can show you how to connect the other side. So let me work the double crochets, 2 double crochets into the chain 2, 1 double crochet into the quad stitch to the end. I'm placing my last double crochet on the last quad stitch from the previous row. Then I'll get the end on the other side where I began with the chain 3. Then I'll do a slip stitch onto the chain 3 right there to complete that row, to complete row 16, that is. So slip stitch, then chain 3, and turn to begin row 17. Now we've already connected and we are working the skirt now. As you can see, we have the top of our dress and now we want to work the skirt. So let's begin with row 17 from that point where we stopped. I had already done the 3 chains and turned, so I'll work in between the 2 panels. I'll yarn over and place a double crochet right there in between. Not in a stitch, but in between the 2 panels. Then I'll get a stitch marker and mark that stitch. So right there, that's where we're going to do an increase in order to get our hip measurements. So mark right there, then go into the next double crochet and place a double crochet. Then we're going to place 1 double crochet in every stitch until we get to the part of joining of the 2 panels on the other side. So let me work the double crochets and I'll meet you in the next joining part. I'm at the second joining part, and in between the 2 panels I'll place a double crochet. Then I'll get a stitch marker and mark that stitch. Then I'm going to continue on to the second panel, on the other panel, and do a double crochet into all the stitches till I get to the end. Let me do that and I'll meet you at the end. If you're enjoying this video, kindly give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and if you want to gift this video in a special way, kindly click on the thanks button and support us in getting better quality lighting for the videos. As you can see, there are points where we have darkness in the video, and that's because my artificial lighting is ruined, so I'm bagging on the natural lighting, which is fluctuating. So gift the video and you'll be able to get better quality videos. So let me keep going until I get to that point, and I'll show you how to complete row 17. I'm working my last stitch. Actually, that stitch is already worked, so I'll just go straight into the chain 3 stitch and slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's a quad plus 2 chains. Then I'm going to yarn over the hook 4 times. Then skip 2 stitches, work into the third one and place a quad stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, skip 2 stitches, work into the third, place the quad stitch, chain 2, yarn over 3 times over the hook, and then skip, then the quad stitch, and continue to the end of row 18. So let me meet you at the end of row 18. I'll show you what to do over there. I'll meet you at the first stitch marker. Actually, let me meet you at the first stitch marker, then show you what to do over there. The last code stitch before the stitch marker will be just in the stitch just before the stitch marker, so place it there. Sorry. Then we're going to chain 2, remove the stitch marker, and place a quad stitch into that stitch marker. Like you can see, we are not skipping at that point, so that's like an increase. We are working in the stitch that had the stitch marker. Sorry, I'm supposed to yarn over 3 times, then go into that stitch that had the stitch marker and place the quad stitch, then get the stitch marker and mark that stitch. So we'll keep on marking that stitch throughout the rows. Chain 2, and we're not skipping again. We're going to go straight into the stitch next to the quad stitch that we've just done. So that stitch next to the quad stitch, to the previous quad stitch, place another quad stitch there. So this is what we're going to have at the point of increase. Then I'm going to chain 2, yarn over the hook 3 times, then skip and continue to the next stitch marker. The last quad stitch will be just before the stitch marker, so I'm placing it right there. Then I'll chain 2, remove the stitch marker from that stitch, and then place a quad stitch right into that stitch where the stitch marker was. Then get the stitch marker and mark that stitch. We are coming to the end of row 18, so I'll chain 2 and slip stitch onto the chain 5 from the beginning. So count 5 chains and slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 3, or before that, let me show you what we have so far. And as you work the increases, you need to measure and make sure that you're getting to your hip measurement so that you do not increase too much. So right here, I'm going to take my measuring tape and take the measurement from one stitch marker to the other. So from that stitch marker to the next stitch marker, I'm going to give this a little bit of a stretch. Now, because I'm working a bikini cover-up dress, I do not want it tight. And so I'll not stretch out my work too much. I'll work up to 22.5, which multiplied by 2 is 45, which is the size of my hips, the size of the hips that I'm working. So now we're going to start row 19 from the point where we've finished row 18. I'm going to insert my hook back there and chain 3 because we want to work a double crochet row. So there I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, then turn to begin row 19. And again we make sure that we mark the stitches that are already marked. So 2 double crochets in the first 2 chains space, then remove the stitch marker and place a double crochet on top of that quad stitch, then mark that stitch again. So wherever there's a stitch marker, make sure that once you work the stitch, you place it back into that new stitch. Then we're going to go into the chain 2 space and work 2 double crochets. And you already know the drill. Repeat this till you get to the next stitch marker, and I'll meet you there. I'm at the second stitch marker and I'll take it out, then place a double crochet on top of that quad stitch, and then get the stitch marker and continue marking that stitch. Then I'll go onto the chain 2 space and place 2 double crochets. Then after the 2 double crochets onto the quad stitch, place a double crochet, place 2 double crochets onto the chain 2 space and continue to the end. Let's meet at the end of row 19. At the end of row 20, I'll do a slip stitch onto the chain 3. Right there, do the slip stitch. Then chain 7 to begin row 21. Then turn. After turning, we're going to yarn over the hook 3 times. And we are going to work in the stitch that has the stitch marker. Place a quad stitch into it. You'll need to remove the stitch marker as you do this, but I first did whatever I was doing and then removed the stitch marker. Then chain 2 back into that stitch with a quad stitch, that same stitch. Again we chain 2 and go back into the same stitch with a quad stitch. So in total we're going to have 3 quad stitches in the same stitch. So that's the third. Now get your stitch marker and mark the second one. So place the stitch marker in the middle quad stitch right there, and then we're going to chain 2, skip, yarn over 3 times, then skip 2 stitches, work into the third one, place a quad stitch, and repeat this until you get to the next stitch marker. So let me keep going with this pattern until I get to the other stitch marker and show you how to increase one more time. I'm getting closer to the stitch marker and I'm just placing that quad stitch. Then I'll chain 2 and go straight into the stitch that has the stitch marker and place a quad stitch. So let me remove the stitch marker first, then I'll do a quad stitch right there. This is the first quad stitch. Then chain 2 back into that stitch with a second quad stitch. So that's the second. Then I'll chain 2 and go back into the same stitch with a third quad stitch. So this is the third one, which is right there, and then I'll get the stitch marker and mark the second quad stitch in that point of increase. Then I'm going to chain 2 and then skip 2 stitches, yarn over 3 times, and then skip 2 stitches, work a quad stitch next. Now repeat to the end. At the end, we're going to chain 2 and do a slip stitch onto the chain 5 from the chain 7 at the beginning. So count 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Insert your hook into the 5th and do a slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 3. Then we turn our work and we're going to work row 22. Before I continue, I'll get the measuring tape and measure the hips to see whether I'm approaching my hip measurement. And remember, we're measuring without stretching out too much. So when I give this a tiny little bit of a stretch, it's getting me to 23. And I wanted 22.5, so I'll work with this, meaning I'm not going to increase anymore. From this point, I'll just work the double crochet rows alternated by the quad stitch rows without an increase. Now, if you've not gotten to your hip measurement, you need to keep the stitch markers and then you'll increase as you move along until you've gotten to your hip measurement. So right here, I'm going to work the 2 rows of double crochets and then come back. I'm done with the 2 rows of double crochets. I'm just working my last double crochet right there. Then I'll slip stitch onto the chain 3. Then I'll chain 7 and turn. Once I turn, I'll yarn over 3 times on the hook, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll skip the 2 stitches and work the quad stitch. Like I've mentioned, I've already hit my hip measurement and I do not need the stitch markers anymore, so I'll remove them, work the quad stitch, alternate it with the 2 double crochets, and then repeat until I get to the full length of my dress. If you've not gotten to your hip measurement, you're going to keep the stitch markers and you're going to increase in every quad stitch until you get to your hip measurement. This is what I have so far, and I'm just going to confirm the full length of my dress up to this point. Then I'll be able to know how far along I am. I'm at a length of about 20 inches, between 19 and 20, and I want to work up to 35. So I'll just keep repeating my rows until I get to the 35 inches. I'm at the end of my last row and I'm doing the last slip stitch, chain 1, and cut off the yarn at that point to complete. So cut off the yarn, pull it through and fasten. Then I'm going to get the darning needle and weave in that end. So get the darning needle right here, put the end through it, and then we're going to go inside the stitches from the wrong side of the dress. Just pass the darning needle through the stitches and hide the end until you're satisfied that it is well hidden. So right here, I'm just passing my darning needle in between the stitches, making sure that the darning needle is not visible on either of the sides. It should be in between the stitches. Then we're going to pull it through and cut off the end that has remained. Then I'm going to go on and weave in all the other ends just like that. To get to the full length of my dress, I've done a total of 44 rows. This is how my dress will look like once I'm done. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, kindly leave a like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and don't forget to click on the thanks button to leave a special gift for this video. Thank you and see you in the next one.